that phrase I used, two-way technical. This was a two-way technical.
Yeah.
This was Kalambai McCallum. This was Marquez Pacquiao. This was, that sort of thing. But it had the frills and spills.
Yeah.
And
Plus the big
as you
moment.
must mention, Connor, on the podcast, you had a little chuckle when I said Usyk was going to stop him, didn't you? A little chuckle.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, Connor.
I said, you said, go on, who's going to win? I said, I think Usyk's going to stop him. And you went, okay.
No, I did not. I think I may have said, really?
No, you're going to play it back. Or people are going to go back and listen and go, fuck hell, Carl's right. And actually, vindicated, he fucking did stop him, really. That should have been a stoppage.
He very well
Let's
could
save
have.
it for the chat, but that should have been a stoppage.
He very well could have, yeah.
Kyle, I never asked you, what did you think of our tremendous new metal intro?
Oh, I was one that, I think I tweeted about it first. I tweeted about it and said, Heavy Hands has a new metal intro now, and I got about fucking 200 likes.
What?
Yeah.
It was great.
We just thought we would be...
Was it AI that did it, Phil?
Yeah.
Was it AI? Oh, wow.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
We just thought we would try being badass for one episode.
Well, you know me, I'm a new metal guy. I'm wearing a Korn t-shirt right now, actually.
I mean, who isn't?
Are you actually a new metal guy, Kyle?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, look. Look at the screen.
I had no idea.
Wow. But yeah, I think we probably won't be doing any more new metal themes in future. That will be a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
K to the Y to the L to the E, it's Kyle time. K to the Y to the L to the E, Corp Ronnie Kona. He's the Iron Glove, he's the Velvet Fist, he's the foul mouth, combat sports, Oliver Twist. More scary than Nolan, smarter than Asta. Krillin trolls online, you can call him the master. K to the Y to the L to the E, it's Kyle time. K to the Y to the L to the E, he hates Doctor Who. It's that time when the crowds explode, cause it's a Kyle MacLachlan guest episode. It's that time when the crowds explode, cause it's a Kyle MacLachlan guest episode.
Hello, and holy shit. That's all I have to say on this episode of Heavy Hands about the incredible heavyweight showdown we saw last weekend. I'm Connor Rebush. Of course, with me as always is Phil McKenzie, and joining us once again is Kyle MacLachlan. Hello, boys.
Yo.
Kyle, just while we start here, a lot of people last week seem to have a real issue with your accent, which has never been a problem before, but they just had a hard time understanding what you were saying.
Well, I understand that was due to your laziness with the editing, Connor, to be honest with you.
I don't think that was it's the whole like pseudo Cockney thing.
If you want good audio editing, be sure to check out the Combat Chronicles podcast, where the guy that runs that puts a lot of effort into taking out all the dead air and everything to make it, better for your listening pleasure. But that's just my opinion. That's just one person's opinion.
What was that? Anyway, is
Connor, the podcast has already finished because you just said that's all I've got to say about this fight. So me and Phil can just go to bed, right? Not together, separate, independent of each other. We can call it a night. You said it's over.
Well, I have a couple more things to say, as I suspect the two of you gentlemen do as well. Once again, this is Heavy Hands, and that fight that we are going to talk about, whatever I may have said at the top, was Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk for the undisputed heavyweight championship. That's right, in a confusing era in which there are at least 4 reputable world titles up for grabs at any one time in each of boxing's 18 weight classes. Nobody knows who the fuck the champion is anywhere, like they used to right up until like the 70s and 80s. Oleksandr Usyk has clarified the picture once again, just as he did in his cruiserweight career, holding all 4 major world titles and I have to say, pretty ugly looking undisputed belt in addition to that, which I think was probably furnished and designed by the fine folks of, where was this? Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates? Saudi Arabia.
Riyadh.
The fight was incredible. I mean, when you think of a fight to unify the titles for an undisputed world championship, a fight to definitively determine who is the best, this is the kind of shit you want to see. And we were very excited and intrigued, and we often are for big fights, and usually when you're that excited, the fight will be good. But I have to say, this fight, truly exceeded the hype and excitement. I did not imagine it being such a classic, like an actual classic title fight. Kyle?
Yeah.
Phil? Whoever? You guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than we possibly could have hoped for, I thought. Because I think we all, were hoping for a good fight. But, again, given what we've seen from Tyson Fury lately, and sort of direction the two men are going in, I didn't think it was. I couldn't bring myself to hope for an amazing fight. I mean, partially because you just don't generally, cross divisional super fight type performances so rarely come to fruition and actually give you something amazing.
Yeah.
And there was this point where, you felt like it felt like we might be going into, something like a Mayweather-Pacquiao situation where one of these guys was clearly much further on the downslope than the other one. There were sort of the stylistic issues, but, I mean, whatever else we could have asked for, this was, I think, both of them coming out and, I mean, Tyson Fury, looking perhaps the best he ever has, or at least, at his best after a sort of string of slightly underwhelming performances. And just kind of like Anthony Joshua before him, really coming in, taking Oleksandr Usyk as absolutely seriously as he possibly could, which is in some ways, I think, made the fight even more satisfying, even more impressive, because he was just, because there was no question that this was one of the best Tyson Furies that we've seen, as in the same way that it was one of the best Anthony Joshuas we've seen. I mean, Usyk just seems to have this.
He brings it out of him, man.
To just bring it out of people. He just, drives them to give their all in the fight. And then afterwards, they briefly go insane because they realize that just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, he does have, it's a pattern of him bringing great fighters to their finest possible form at that moment, and then still beating them, still breaking their spirits. Although I can't say he actually succeeded in doing that. Kyle, you famously, I scoffed at the time. I think we all remember. Predicted that Oleksandr Usyk would knock Tyson Fury out. I believe you said that, and if I can quote my reaction from memory, I think it was...
Maybe not that bad. Maybe not that bad.
I muttered something about this fucking dimwit. Something like that. You can, if you really turn up the audio on last week's episode, you can hear me saying that probably, but he came pretty damn close, didn't he, to knocking Tyson Fury out in the 9th round of this fight.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about the entire ebb and flow and tactical shifts of the bout. But, certainly from a personal standpoint, that was a highlight for me. And as Phil said, it's what both guys brought to the table. I think we all said last week that it was going to be really difficult to predict how this fight would actually look in the ring without knowing what each man could actually bring to it, what shape Fury would be in, etc. And what we saw is that what each man brought to the ring in their entirety, in terms of strategic choices, the timing, the ebb and flow shifts, the power, the durability, the heart, the pace, everything. Just was this amazing melting pot that produces a great fight. And if you take one of those elements out, it wouldn't be as intriguing. So I think it was the best of everything, really, and that's why we're so hyped up about it. But certainly, if you'd asked me to record this podcast a couple of days ago, I would have been unable to because my throat has been fucking frazzled the last couple of days. because I was like that, the meme where the guy says, "That's why he's the GOAT, the GOAT." That was me when Usyk was battering Fury all around the ring. So, my partner stayed up with me to watch the fight just to sort of show moral support, I think. And because I was a nervous wreck and got to see a side of me that she's never seen before in 11 years, which is a visceral, animalistic response to extreme violence. So, yeah, great.
And,
great
now,
stuff.
and now you're alone. She's left to stay with her mother for the weekend.
Yeah.
She hasn't come back yet. Okay, well, let's talk about... because the thing is, with every great fight, what determines whether a fight is great or merely pretty good is the ebb and flow, as you've said, Kyle. The momentum shifts. I mean, that's what you want to see in a really great competitive high-level fight. Are two fighters making successive adjustments and forcing the other to do the same in turn. And this fight had a lot of that over 12 rounds. Should we, just before we even get into that, though, say what our scores were? Always a subject of interest in big boxing fights.
Yeah, sure. I've got mine here written down.
Let's hear it.
I had it. I gave Fury round 4 close, 5, 6, 7 close, and Usyk 1, 2, 3 was close, 8, 9 is a 10-8, 10, 11 close, and 12 close. So I had it 1, 1, 6, 1, 11 to Usyk, but I could see obviously 7, 5, or possibly even 6, 6 with the knockdown swaying it. But the 7-5 card for me, for Fury, not to get too much into it, because obviously you boys are going to offer your own, but the scorecard for me, it wasn't so much about Fury getting 7-5. I could kind of maybe see it based on where you were sat in the ring. It's just some of the rounds he gave him. I think that judge gave him 11 and like 10, 11 and 12 or something like that, but it didn't really seem... It seemed a bit off to me. But
gave him 10?
Certainly, yeah, 10. I didn't get 10 at all.
He definitely didn't get 10. Yeah,
No.
I mean,
but a very competitive fight.
Yeah, it's possible because I think for me, watching it for the first time and, just being absolutely juiced up about it, I think I gave Usyk, the 7th, which in review I still think is pretty close to a swing round.
Oh, sure.
And it's such a dramatic shift from how horribly round 6 was going for Usyk. That's possibly what happened for that judge. I mean, it's a real thing. round 9 was the clearest round of the fight. Fury was out on his feet for a solid half of a minute, and was still stumbling when he returned to the corner. And then round 10 was pretty competitive. In large part because I think Usyk had to kind of recover. He had to take the round off because he went apeshit trying to finish Fury. So maybe that's what happened. He just overcompensated with his scoring and picked up on the momentum shift being so dramatic, which it was. I still think it's a pretty clear Usyk round. I think I had rounds 3 and 7 and 12 as the major swing rounds. Otherwise, I would say I pretty much had Usyk through the first 4. Fury 5, 6, and in review I did give him 7, though I still think it was close. He lands the best shot of that round, certainly one really big right uppercut. And then by round 8, I think we're back into Usyk territory until basically the last round.
Oh, sorry, just to clarify, before you come on, Phil, he didn't give Fury round 10. He gave Fury round 2.
Round 2.
That was the one that was weird. So he gave Fury 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12. That's too much for me.
Yeah, 11 and 12. I don't think 11 was a Fury round.
Definitely not 2. Definitely not 2. I think that's...
Oh, definitely not 2.
Overcompensating. Yes, I think he overcompensated around 2 because probably in the final third, Fury managed to get his timing down a bit, and he must have thought, we didn't win round 1 or the first 2 minutes, so he might have nicked that round. But I mean, for me, Usyk comes out. I mean, again, we're going to talk about it round by round, I'm sure, but came out just firing on all cylinders in that one.
I mean, just whacked him with a big left hand, like right at the start of the round, and then he kept.
And as I said in the preview last week, that's what Usyk's great at doing, going over or under the jab. And on that one, he's come straight under it with the 1-2, and Fury was knocked right back onto his heels. So I think at that point, it looked like Usyk was trying to take him out, which was wild. 4 minutes into the fight, 3 minutes into the fight, but
plus Usyk landed.
Sorry, I digress.
Plus Usyk landed a ton of body shots in that round. He was really all over the body, especially early in the fight. But all right, Phil, what did you think? I think mine basically comes down to 8 rounds to 4 for Usyk. With some
I thought
rounds.
it was tough to score. There were just a lot of swing rounds. But I think for me, again, using the tried and true, like, statistical metric of like clear rounds, I thought Usyk, had more rounds where he obviously won them. Mm-hmm. Albeit there was a lot of, as you said, there's a lot of like ebb and flow to the fight. So I think I had, round 1 Usyk fairly clearly. Round 2, I thought Usyk was fairly clear. I didn't really think I thought that's a really odd one to score for him. Round 3 I thought was close. But I think I still gave it to Usyk. Round 4 I think is an easy Fury round. Similarly, round 5 and 6, I think, he hurts him in round 6. It wasn't. So I think by that point it is 4-3 Usyk. And round 7 I thought was extremely close. Couldn't really think maybe it's I think I probably scored it for Usyk, but I might have just been biased.
It's a big swing from round 6 is what got me too. It's a real dramatic shift.
Yeah. And then 8, Usyk, 9, obviously a 10-8, 10 and 11, I think were also scored them for Usyk. To be honest, I thought Fury was coming back to it. Honestly, like the last round, I just thought was a swing. People were saying that Fury was like winning it fairly clearly, but I just didn't.
No.
I just thought there wasn't anything in it at all. So I think my cards actually quite similar to yours, Connor, to be honest.
Yeah.
Even the big right hand that Fury landed in round 12, Usyk hits him at exactly the same time. So it kind of evens out. I know Usyk stumbles back a bit. Yeah. He's fighting a bloke, 2 stone heavier than him, if not more. So it is regular to do that. Just quickly as well, it's one thing we didn't talk about, because obviously it happened subsequent to our analysis and preview, was at the weigh-in. Obviously Fury looked slimline compared to what we know. Mm-hmm. And Usyk was announced as 233 pounds. It appears that was erroneous, and he was 223 pounds, closer to his normal heavyweight weigh-in. So I think I sort of panicked straight afterwards. I thought, oh God, has he put the bulk on right? Does he know what he's doing? Is it going to take away from his legs or what have you? And I think actually he was basically the same weight as he was for the Joshua fights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all right, let's we've talked a lot about the ebb and flow, the momentum shifts over the fight. Let's sort of get into telling the story of how this played out, because this was the really fascinating thing. I think the term you used before we started, Kyle, was a two-way technical.
Yes.
Or as I would more annoyingly call this kind of fight, the actual genuine chess match of boxing.
Sure.
People use that term a lot. Usually in MMA, it's now come to mean a fight that sucks. If it sucks, but Joe Rogan wants to seem smart, it's a chess match. But there are those fights. I mean, we famously talked about like Donald Curry, Marlon Starling is like a deep cut two-way technical. The like McCallum, James Toney fights fit that definition for me. And this was one of those, plus the kind of big moments that you get in the more brawly kind of. I mean, it just had something for everybody. Like, it was a super high-level, thought-provoking series of skirmishes that also had both guys badly hurting each other. More so Fury than Usyk, but both guys nailed each other. I mean, this had to be. Was this the hardest fight that Usyk has had at heavyweight? It had to be, right?
Heavyweight, sure. I mean, AJ landed some big shots in the second, but we spoke last week about the mental duress that Fury would be put under. I actually think Usyk was put under just as much, because
I think so.
He hasn't really had to adjust in this sort of way. He's been hit with big shots at cruiserweight by Bradis and Gassiev, and Bellew caused him some issues of how sort of tricky he was early on, but certainly a heavyweight. I mean, the AJ fight, sure, he took some big shots in the second. It's only really one round that he's not on top of his game. In this one, he had a good solid 3 rounds where he was like fucking trying to catch up and make the adjustments.
Yeah, it was more than just him taking big shots. I mean, there was a period in the middle of this fight where Usyk was out of the fight. Fury was controlling him. He had his timing. Usyk could not figure out how to get into range without getting interrupted or countered after throwing. Like, he was under control. I've never seen that. I've seen Usyk take some shots, maybe not get going fast enough, or maybe take a round off or whatever. I don't think I've yet to see a heavyweight actually start beating him. Fury was winning at that point in the fight, in every sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
And Usyk looked dispirited, like in a way that I have literally never seen from him. I don't think even in his fight with, was it Bradis? Which was
Maris Bradis, yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough one. That was very back and forth, but Usyk didn't look dispirited in that. It was just close and tight pretty much all throughout. He actually looked like he felt the fight was slipping away from him in those, through like rounds, late round 4 through round 6. So things started off early, Usyk pressuring, and very quickly it became apparent that anytime Tyson Fury got cornered, he was going to be in trouble.
Yep, and he was mugging. He was mugging to the crowd in the first round, and I turned to my partner and she said, "Why is he doing that?" And I said, "Because he realises how fucked he is. Because he has got no way to escape this scenario." Obviously, Usyk came out early. He was hitting the straight left to the body.
A lot of body shots.
Yeah, a lot of body shots, but also dominating lead foot position and lead hand position to the extent that Fury always had to go to his own right. So Usyk was able to cut him off regularly. When Fury couldn't skirt out either way, he did his usual gesticulating. And Usyk actually stepped back. I think it was a kind of half, this guy's unpredictable. Let's see what he does. Let's not give him any opportunity. Mm-hmm. But also, you don't like it in the corner. Let's go back to centre ring then. And continue to boss it. And I think the first 2 rounds basically finished, continued in that pattern.
Actually, I believe in the slow motion replay of that moment, you couldn't see it during the round. But when Fury was like really mugging in the corner, when he was like looking around and hamming it up for the crowd, Usyk waggled his tongue at him in that moment. He actually like waited for Fury to look back at him and waggled his tongue in a very Fury-esque mannerism. I think he was like, I'm not going to go for you when you're doing this. Like, come back here. I'll walk you into the corner again. We'll start over. If you're so unimpressed by my pressuring. Yeah. So Fury kept getting pushed into the corner. It took him a while to really find his jab and to figure out how to counter Usyk's. And stop him from entering. And as you said, Kyle, Usyk always does such a great job of flashing something in your face and stepping deep outside your lead foot as the southpaw and just getting close very quickly and landing that left hand. And as was kind of the case in the Tony Bellew fight, Fury could not see the looping left hand coming in particular. I mean, I gotta say, in round 1, I was immediately reminded of what we said about Fury's fight with Steve Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
Because Usyk stepped in, led with a right hook, I think, and then his head drifts off to the right as he's in the motion of throwing the left hand, and in the replay, you can watch Fury's eyes just following Usyk's head as the left hand comes whipping around from the blind side, and I think that shot actually stunned him. That early in the fight. Not like he was badly hurt, but it shook him a little bit because he simply did not see it coming.
But also as well, it's not just people always say that, body shots will pay dividends because it brings your hands down. But what Usyk does is he was bringing Fury's eyes down.
Yeah.
He's going upstairs with a jab. I think I basically said this last week. It's like the Manny Pacquiao diversion tactic. You go up with the jab and then down with the left hand.
Yeah.
Then you go up with the jab and then you drop your shoulder as if you're throwing the left hook or the left straight or left hand, whatever, to the gut again, and you just whip it over the top. So Fury, his eyes are going, oh yeah, I know what he's doing now. He's built into a pattern. He's going to go up, down, up, down, up, down. And of course he doesn't. He goes up, up. Fury's hands and his eyes come down, left hand whips over the top, and it either has two effects, or it catches him clean, or it moves him back towards the right hand. And the fact that Fury was able to adjust to that and get his timing down, which I know we're about to talk about, we start to sort of see the seeds being planted of a really great fight.
Yeah, very much like the overhand knockdown in the fourth Pacquiao-Marquez fight, before the knockout.
Exactly.
That level change, that little shoulder dip, and then just completely blinds the opponent to this big, winging, wide rear hand shot. And that was a problem for Fury through like 4 rounds. He could, every time he got cornered, it seemed, he would eat a wide left hand. He would eat an overhand left. But he started to adjust to that. I think that there were a couple layers to that. First of all, I think Fury did a great job of starting to actually establish his jab from about round 3 on, making it a lot harder for Usyk to just jump right away into range behind his own jab. I think he also just started to get the timing down on Usyk's lead hand. This is actually something that was a little problem. Usyk does a lot of like pawing and like flicking jabs. And I think from around round 4 through round 6, Fury had basically determined that he didn't really have to respect Usyk's lead hand. Usyk kind of stopped actually just stabbing him in the face with the jab. And he was just flicking it out there, and Fury was just looking past it, waiting for him to step in behind it, and then often doing like a flick jab or a pawing jab of his own just to blind Usyk or get him to duck right into the uppercut, which was the punch that Fury used to really fully change the momentum of this fight. And once he figured out what Usyk's entries looked like and got his timing and figured out that he could stick the jab in his face and get him to drop into that uppercut, whether it was to the body or the head, he did both. He just had Usyk's timing. Usyk just couldn't get in anymore for like 3 rounds straight. He just could not figure out how to close the distance and became, like I said, like really hesitant, like I've never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I felt a lot of it was like a shockingly, like, rear hand heavy fight in terms of like the actual scoring weapons that both men used.
Yeah.
Cause Fury's version of how he started beating Usyk was, it was very similar to what Usyk was doing, because he wasn't necessarily like, he wasn't looking to hurt him with his jab either. His jab wasn't typically particularly hard. He was mostly, he was flicking it out as a rangefinder just to stop Usyk and to find where he was. Occasionally he'd throw like a harder left hook. But again, you could tell that he wasn't putting his weight into it. He was keeping it back and sort of keeping his weight back so that he could, retreat behind his shoulder, or he could just pull into the uppercut, essentially. But yeah, both of them were, and I think, it was like Carl said, the weird, like, two mirror image men. Like, that was sort of, in some ways, the story of this fight. Like, they both had these sort of funhouse reflections of the other man's game that they started to dominate with at different parts of the fight. Both of them had a very strong idea that they were gonna attack the body and wear the other guy down. And they were both absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like, Usyk had tons of combination work to the body. Yeah, Fury just kept, obviously for totally different reasons. Usyk was doing it because he was up against a giant, and Fury was doing it because Usyk kept slipping and moving off, and he just wanted to hit center mass. And yeah, it ended up being this, like this funhouse reflection of two different styles. And yeah, very, very, very competitive. And yeah, as you said, the uppercut and the establishment of the lead hand, I think, really, really flummoxed Usyk until he basically just decided, I've just got to extend the exchanges.
Yeah, that was for sure part of it, like recountering Fury's counter uppercuts. I think also, like you see after, and we should talk a little bit more about how incredibly strong Fury's 6th round was, but part of the adjustment after that, I really think, was that Usyk actually just straight up landed a couple hard jabs.
Mm-hmm.
And that remained part of his game for the rest of the fight. He needed it because he basically had gone away from actually trying to land his jab. I think he sort of paid for his own success, and Fury capitalized on that because he also stopped going to the body quite as much in those rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because he hit the body every time he threw, whether it was a jab or a straight left. Any straight punch he threw, free shot to the body.
I mean, there's a lot of body to hit.
Exactly. It's the guy's 6'9" or whatever, however tall he is. Like, it's just very difficult for a guy that tall to defend his body from a shorter man's long straight punches. It's free real estate, and that yielded such a reward for Usyk in all of the like looping left hands he started to land upstairs. I think he drifted away from focusing on the body. And because the left hand was landing so much, he also drifted away, as I said, from actually landing the jab with authority. And then after round 6, he had to bring both those things back. He had to actually stick Fury, chase after him with some nice, stiff, couple like actual power jabs and some just classic snapping jabs as well. And he had to go back to the body with the left hand. And it made all the difference when he tried to kind of reestablish those weapons. But the other part of it, Kyle, you talked about this earlier, was Fury looking a little deeper into the exchanges, figuring out that Usyk looking deeper into the exchanges, figuring out that Fury was drawing out his entries and punishing them, and then Usyk having to figure out how to draw out Fury's counters and punish those in turn.
Yeah, so basically, obviously, early on, Fury cottoned on that Usyk would use throwaways to set up his own backhand, and then Usyk seemed to, especially after that 6th round where, I think that's the round where Fury lands the big uppercut that goes straight through Usyk.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm sure every international broadcast going, because we had 3 here in the UK alone, 3 major broadcasters carrying this fight.
Wow.
They all noted that, Usyk was badly hurt. For me, getting him to reset, that's basically all you can really hope for. He's about as iron-chinned as they come, but Fury definitely got his attention.
He was definitely hurt. I mean, his legs were 100%. A little unsteady. He had to go pretty purely defensive after that.
That's the uppercut that had Dillian White, needing oxygen.
Yeah.
So, a big shot. Fury's not George Foreman by any means, but he's a real sharp puncher. So then I think Usyk, that 7th round onwards, thought, right, okay, I've, as you said, got to extend these exchanges, got to punch with him in order to catch him, because obviously what Fury was doing was he wasn't using that body punch and that uppercut to maraud forward. He was using it to force Usyk to reset, give himself breathing room, okay? Because first couple of rounds, especially, Usyk was just on top of him. Interesting aside, about a week before the fight, I posted a clip from the Otto Wallin fight, which we've now had the pronunciation confirmed to us after last week's shenanigans. There's that word again. I posted a clip from that in before Fury was cut, because often detractors will say Fury looked poor in that one, and Fury fans will say, well, he had a really bad cut to contend with. But it was actually a clip from prior to the cut where Wallin caught him in the corners and was level changing and causing Fury issues. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are people in the replies missing the point entirely, saying, yeah, but how much of that landed? To which it was like, it's illustrating that if Wallin can get him into those positions, then what is Usyk got to do with those positions? And I think that very much played out in the fight. Once Fury, of course, was not allowing Usyk to jump all over him by punishing him with these sharp counters, Usyk, I think, then made the adjustment to say, right, okay, I'm going to give him the throwaways that draw out that counter. And you saw Usyk, he was either getting there before Fury or his timing is so good. And that's why I don't understand why people don't see the great defensive fighter. He was actually slipping all the way over to his left. And that right hand, that right hook was going over his shoulder. And then putting him in position to counter to the body or counter or just get Fury to keep punching, missing, herding him into the corners again, and just basically get him to expend energy. In that 7th round, that's when you see Usyk start holding his feet more and going, do you know what? I'm going to offer him a high guard. I'm going to draw these shots out. I'm either going to catch him, parry him, or I'm going to absorb him, or I'm going to slip him. But whatever way I have to implement in this fight to get close enough that I can hit him over the top, I'm going to do it. And I think it's that 7th round where you finally, Fury opens up, looks more comfortable. He thinks, oh, this guy, you know, I've got him now. I've got my timing down. And Usyk, I think it was a 3-2, right hook, left hand over the top. And Fury kind of made a face at him. And I thought, hold on a minute. The tides might be changing just a little bit here. And obviously, from there on out, we get the moments that elevate this fight from really fucking good, really intriguing, a wonderful technical fight to potentially, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this at the end of this section, but maybe even one of the fights of the year, the fight of the year.
I mean, I can't say with too much authority, having not watched a ton of boxing this year, but one of the best fights I've seen in some time, I feel like especially for heavyweight. It was,
I mean, just in terms
phenomenal.
of like combat sports, right? It's
Definitely.
It's not just across MMA and boxing.
Yeah,
it's the narrative, isn't it? It's how meaningful this fight is.
Yeah. The thing about it is it's the stakes, it's the drama of the fight itself, it's the way it is such a boxing narrative in the way that it plays out. You know, it's the kind of great fight that you can only get from boxing. You know, one which has sort of, you know, four main chapters spread out over 12 rounds. And yeah, it's got twists and turns. Yeah, I think it is the fight of the year so far.
No reason to say it isn't. I mean, Jesus Christ. Yeah, Usyk actually came up with like a bunch of different ways of meeting that uppercut, which I thought was amazing. Like as you said, Kyle, the man deserves his flowers as a defensive fighter. He just doesn't. I think it's just that he just doesn't look as like outwardly slick as a guy like Fury, for example. Fury really tries to make it look cool when he's defending. You know what I mean? We have a certain expectation of what like a slick fighter looks like. Which is why, you know, Kyle, how much I love the aforementioned Marlon Starling. Or like say the style of like Winky Wright, who was very similar as like a high guard defensive specialist. These guys don't come across necessarily as slick all the time because your idea of a slick fighter is like, yeah, hands down, shoulder rolling, slipping, rolling under everything. And you see a guy who's just really good at catching shots in his gloves and actually keeping a really active guard. And maybe it just doesn't track as slick defense for a lot of people. Well, Usyk does it very, very well, in addition to the slipping and the footwork he uses to evade punches. But yeah, he drew the uppercut out and he was like stepping back from it. Then he started slipping it, which yes, an uppercut might punish a slip of a right hand, but you can also slip an uppercut if you get a good read on it. He started stepping off to the right, pivoting away from the uppercut. And then a little after that, he started smothering it too. I think once he
just tanked it as well. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes he just thought, I'll fucking just walk through you.
Just ate it. And I mean, that was part of it. Part of the adjustment was just willpower, that he was like, I'm just going to punch with you. You're going to hit me and I'm going to hit you right at the same time. Let's see who wins. That was definitely part of the comeback.
It's unreal, man.
Yeah. It was just guts, as well. But yeah, then he started kind of smothering it, standing his ground. And I mean, that's a risky thing to do if you don't have the timing, but he did have the timing at that point and he just started stepping into the uppercut and Fury couldn't actually get enough real estate to generate any leverage or land clean. He just hit the guard or the shoulder. And that's very much the kind of position we were in when Usyk hurt Fury. Really hurt him. Because it started in round 8, I think. He busted Fury's nose.
Right at the end of the 8th round, he went back to the corner, and I turned to my partner. Obviously, he's a layman fan. The only thing she knows more about boxing than she should, because, I waffle on incessantly. This may surprise you, boys.
No.
Yeah. There's no one's girlfriend who Ayub Kalule, the Ugandan light middleweight champion, is.
How does your girl feel about Sumbu Kalambe? Just out of curiosity.
Almost, you won't believe what I found. I found a Kalambe fight I haven't seen before. How was your day? I was watching, some Soviet amateur boxing from the 80s. It's brilliant. You know what I mean? Just don't need to know any of this. But I looked at her and went. And obviously, I just want to sort of let the listeners know at home, if they didn't hear last week's or don't listen to my podcast, I'm a big fan of both guys. Very much invested in this fight on a personal level. So, live in the moment, I was not a particularly good judge. Mm-hmm. I was overly pessimistic to how Usyk's rounds were going when he was losing them.
Right.
But also at the same time, oftentimes when I watch a fight, I watch it thinking, the judges might have scored it this way or might have scored it that way. So at that point, with 3 being a close round, I assumed that Usyk was now the fight was slipping away from him. So when he went back to his corner, Fury, after the 8th round, I sort of turned to my girlfriend and said, "You don't look too hot, does he?" And she was like, "No, he looks really pissed off, like there's blood all over his face and his lips started swelling up." And I thought, I think he's getting to him a bit here. Obviously, then the 9th round happened where Usyk moved Fury over to his own right again. Obviously, Usyk left. Fury's been moved over to his right. And after the fight, certainly on UK broadcast, the sort of the narrative was that Usyk will often hold his power until late in fights. I don't think it's necessarily late in fights. I think it's just he has to feel comfortable to really let his hands go and give him a full-blooded shot. And he just saw Fury was extending in the pocket long enough that he thought, now's the time, let's go. He doesn't hold back power. The guy throws a lot of shots. He just, in that amateur sort of style, won't sit down on a big one, because back in those days, if you got caught with one right on the mush, you'd lose the point. And often you'll find with Usyk as well, and I think this stems from the amateur days and just, machismo as well. If he loses an exchange, he goes right back.
Sure.
Because obviously in the amateur game, you needed to, with the computer-based scoring when he was an amateur, you needed to go right back and hopefully get that point back. So he doesn't allow people to get the initiative. And Fury just howled for too long. I think he went with a right hand and a left hook, and he went to throw the right uppercut behind it. And he was kind of shoe shining or using sort of, just touching him with throwaways. He went to throw the right hand, and Usyk just sat down, right hand, left hand over the top, steamed into him. And as Fury sagged back to the ropes, it kind of had that, for those that are not aware, the great member of the Murderers Row, Lloyd Marshall, used to do this kind of rope-a-dope thing where if a shot hit him, he'd bounce back off the ropes and use it as leverage to throw himself back. And I thought, Fury, he looks a bit stunned, but I thought that he was willingly going back to the ropes just to kind of go, come on, this is my breather. It became apparent very quickly that he was not taking a breather. His legs were completely gone.
His legs were gone. His eyes were unfocused. He was badly fucked up by just that first shot. Yeah, what it was, the momentum had fully shifted by that point already. As I said, Usyk landed some good jabs, started completely neutralizing the uppercut, and then he whipped in a long overhand left that busted Fury's nose in round 8. Round 9, momentum continues to build for him. More and more initiative, landing to the body, countering the uppercuts. And I think Fury just felt it slipping back away from him and tried to scare Usyk off. His back was to the ropes.
Because that had worked. Because that had worked in previous rounds, right?
Sure.
Force him to reset.
Yeah. And so, he tried to shift in. He completely left his stance. And he ended up smothering himself with those little throwaway shoe shine kind of shots because Usyk just didn't move. It looked like he was punching, expecting Usyk to retreat, and like he was going to whip a big one in after the first 3 touches. And Usyk just didn't move. He eats a little left hand, like an uppercut, or an up jab at close range, and he just stays right where he is. And I think a shot that it didn't actually land a lot, but the fact that Fury had to respect it made it very instrumental, was Usyk's right hook. Always a good punch for him. And in this case, it was the right hook that set up that left hand, because it, just as in round 1, completely distracted Fury, who was out of his stance, out of position, too close, too tall. He ate that right hook, not super hard, but clean on the jaw, and then his eyes just were not trained on the overhand left that came whipping around from the complete opposite direction after that. So a 2-punch counter sequence that just punished Fury for basically getting a little lazy and trying to push Usyk back and relieve some of the pressure. And yeah, Fury was out on his feet for like 30 seconds. He was stumbling. It was a miracle the fight wasn't stopped, or that a knockdown wasn't called earlier. Maybe he would have recovered within that round a little bit. If it had, I kind of doubt it. I think he needed that minute on the stool, because the man was out on his feet. He could barely stand. His eyes were completely unfocused. He had no defense. The only reason any of the shots that came in that period missed him was just luck. That he would stumble into Usyk and smother him, or Usyk would throw too wild and overextend, or whatever. Like, he had nothing to stop.
He was
Usyk.
more gone than in the 12th round in the first Wilder fight. Because
That's
in
what
that
I'm
one,
thinking. Yeah.
He got flattened, but he looks at the ref. When he's on the floor, the ref starts counting. And Fury looks at him straight away. He'll say, "Give us a sec, mate. I'm all right."
Yeah.
And has the wherewithal to have a little jog around the ring, make the referee follow him, take a little while to dust his gloves off, to wipe his gloves off.
I always thought in that Wilder fight, he pointedly did not do what Zab Judah did against Kostya.
Get up too quick, yeah.
Yeah, he got dropped and tried to stand immediately, and then the chicken dance that resulted from that is really what caused the ref to stop the fight. He's like, oh, this guy's not recovered. Fury stayed down so he could make sure he had his legs when he tried to stand.
But this one, his eyes were going in different directions. I've never seen him.
Yeah.
We spoke about Cunningham. We spoke about Wilder. We spoke about even like Pikage and Furfer and all these people that have hurt Fury over the years. He bounces back fast. In this one, I think, yes, the decision to, and I'd be really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Based on the rules of boxing, there could have been a number of knockdowns because obviously I think people at the night were like, it's not amateur boxing. Why is he giving him a standing count? He wasn't giving him a standing count.
He fell into
the ropes. Held him up.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a knockdown, okay? However, for cosmic justice, given the fact all of Fury's talk, all of that rabbit, he's a middleweight, right? You know, I'm going to knock him fucking spark out. All of that, I think the ref should have let Usyk the fucking hammer away. I think he should have let him finish him off. I think one more shot, I think Fury would have been fucking out for the count. And I was stood up screaming at the TV. Thank God my neighbours went on vacation that day. I'm catering to you, Connor, with the choice of word there. It's holiday to me and Phil, or indeed Hollybox.
This is bullshit. You said vacation accidentally, and now you're trying to cover for it. You're an American. Kyle's an American.
But they went because at 12 o'clock at night or 12:30 or whatever it was, I was screaming, "Pull him out, John! You've got to save your son's life!" I was going fucking mental. You fucking, smash him, you effing C. I was going effing wild. I was effing and jeffing, Phil. Sorry. I know that's not becoming. Gentlemen, but obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and are you happy with the fact, as I alluded to earlier, did we get, I think it would have been an amazing iconic moment if Usyk had knocked Fury out after all that, especially given everything Fury's had over the years in terms of how great he is at recovering, but the fact he bounced back, I think, kind of shows the form he was in, and thus doesn't give anyone the opportunity to say, oh, well, if a light hitter's knocking him out, he obviously was past his prime. And I don't think Usyk is a light hitter by any means, but I think people would have been able to explain away Usyk's victory more so than if Fury hadn't bounced back and it contributed to an even more dynamic ebb and flow.
Yeah, I mean, for all that I said, I fully think Fury was more badly hurt here than he was in that miraculous recovery against Wilder. Mm-hmm. He still recovered miraculously. The dude has,
he's got Larry Holmes.
Yeah, yes. He just has unbelievable powers of recovery. Even the very round after that, Usyk still wins it. I think he took a lot of time off because, I mean, Usyk was gassed. He had to take a couple breaks in this fight. The pace was torrid. But by the end of that round, Fury he looked fine, like completely fine again. And he had to take some big shots after that, and he took them well. Like, I don't know how, I do not know how. Again, I mentioned last week Archie Moore, Yvonne Durrell. That to me is like the most miraculous recovery from a knockdown I've seen. This was on par with that. I thought he was unconscious. And then he came back and very arguably he fought well and very arguably won the last round of the fight, which was just super back and forth.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know how to explain that. It's just a special power that Tyson Fury has.
Yeah, he's just say what you want about him as like a person, but the man has tremendous heart in the ring. Like, he just, but it's obviously also some, many people are mentally tough, but yeah, he's got some freakish physical gift to just be able to pull it back as well.
And surely a testament to his conditioning as well, because he was in very good shape for this fight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I thought was encouraging in the run-up to it, was just people saying how seriously he'd been taking this and how obsessed he was with it and how light he was coming in.
You could tell, man.
And yeah, you really, really could. He's definitely, always been one of those fighters where you can see his preparation.
Yep.
Because he's so, he bounces back between the extremes so much. But yeah, I mean, I think that ninth round definitely could have been called. I think he was bouncing around the ring like a pinball. I think, as someone said, like, he was literally being beaten from pillar to post.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, in some ways, only being kept up by the fact that he was like giant enough that the ropes are high enough on him that they were like catching the upper part of his back to keep him upright.
He didn't manage to fall through them. He's too big.
Yeah.
I think one more shot he would have went through, fucking Ben McClellan style. And I think even with his powers of recovery, it's a big old body we're picking up when you're that badly hurt. I think Usyk could have splattered him. But,
I mean, I don't know if you noticed in when the knockdown was finally called, which, it was the best time to call a knockdown compared to all the others. He had to sit down on the rope. He was so hurt and so disoriented, the turnbuckle or rope behind him seemed to stun him. He whacked his head back against the ropes and it dazed him even more. He was that out of it. It was like his head hitting the canvas,
Well, after the fight, he said Happy New Year. So
what the fuck does that mean?
Do you have a fucking clue where he was?
It's May. Yeah, that was strange. I didn't even pick up on that when I first heard it. I was like, okay, yeah. Wait a minute.
When was this fight originally booked for again?
January, February, first week of Feb or something like that, yeah.
It just sent him back, it sent him back for 12 weeks to his initial camp.
But it's justice, right? Usyk, had to endure these taunts, and we know it doesn't faze him, but, Fury, his talk was always going to catch up with him eventually. It's what makes him a compelling figure. His balls to the wall, mental warfare, he basically acts like, the hardest bloke on the estate still, even though he's a top athlete, just talks shit to people all the time. That's what makes him a compelling character, because certainly the heavyweight division was crying out for that when you had the two stoic, well-educated Klitschko brothers on top for all those years, had some great physical traits, but weren't always the most compelling to watch, and certainly weren't the most compelling characters. Outside of the fact they were very easy to respect, that's fine. So Fury gave us that, but it's good to see a real respectable champion on top again, because it seems that this is the fight that finally has got the wider public to catch up on Usyk and go, oh yeah, this guy really is like a generational talent. We really are witnessing something very, very special indeed.
Yeah. That's how it feels, man.
It's always the toughest way to do it. It's just to do it by being really, really good.
For a very long time.
Oh, by the way, just quickly as well, talk about anti-pressure fighting like we did earlier. Fury, I said last week, the one place he's going to have an advantage was in the clinch game. I didn't think he'd be able to cut. I think we basically all came to the conclusion that, yes, everyone said in the lead up, as if it was this simple, oh, he's just got to put his weight on him and walk him down. It'll be easy. It was never going to be easy, but we felt that due to the varied approaches that Fury could take, that would eventually come into play. Actually, I think Usyk was very, very quick to post, to get bicep control. There's even, I mean, one or two occasions where he anticipated Fury's right hand reaching over and just laced it over his head, ducked under and got behind him. So they were clearly well scouted in that regard. And it is apparent that it wasn't just Anthony Joshua's lack of nous in the clinch game that caused Usyk to push him around so easily, because there's one point in this Fury fight where he got bicep control and just fucking pushed Fury into the corner and said, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're going to continue punching it out. And Fury, that safety blanket wasn't quite there from him. Yeah. Yes, he adjusted. Yes, that phase of fighting where he's this excellent, sharp counter puncher, way too fast for a bloke of his size. That came into play instead. And there were moments where he backed Usyk up, sure. And the body shots come into play, as people said, Usyk's weak to the body. Fury's just got to keep throwing to the body. Well, obviously it's not that easy. But Usyk took out the opportunity to be mauled by being more than well equipped to, if not win the clinch battle, but to handle Fury there and make it a stalemate.
Is the narrative that Usyk is weak to the body simply because it's the only place people tend to hit him clean?
Yeah, that's the only place you can really get his attention. His fucking chin is ridiculous.
And people, yeah, but like also it's like, whether it's like Dubois, Joshua, like they just hit him to the body. Those are like the most memorable shots of the fight because it's so difficult to even get a good shot on his head.
But who isn't weak to the body when it's a guy? I mean, Dubois isn't massive. He's still a bit heavier than Usyk. But who isn't going to be weak to the body when a guy outweighs you by 20 pounds?
Oh yeah,
smashing you in the body.
Dubois is big, and he's a horse too. He is a powerful fighter, Dubois, and as is Joshua.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are all big, muscular fighters. They're not like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's just funny that being a narrative. I think it's a good idea to go to his body.
Oh, sure.
Worked for Joshua, worked great for Fury. Should be a good idea that you have in pretty much every fight. But, it is kind of funny to think the only reason that narrative exists about Usyk is because his upstairs defense is so consistent.
Yep. And a couple of fights back in the amateurs where Beterbiev got his attention. There was one where he got a knockdown to a body shot, and one where he got a knockdown but it was ruled to be round the back. And Majidov in the World Series of Boxing, he did basically the exact same thing as Dubois, but rather than the shot coming up through the groin, it went down through the belt line. And Usyk got a count from that and carried on. Again, massive puncher, the Azerbaijani Majidov. So yeah, there is previous, but when all you can say is when massive punches, era-defining, generational, pound-for-pound level punchers like Beterbiev,
yeah, right.
Who's one of the most freakish punchers going. And let's be honest, he wasn't. Those bouts were at heavyweight, so he was essentially 200 pounds or thereabouts, and he was probably in the ring about the same size as Joe Frazier weight-wise.
Yeah.
This idea that Beterbiev, Majidov, Dubois, Fury, Joshua hurt Usyk to the body, well, it didn't get him that far in the end, did it? So I think we need to sort of quash this narrative that Usyk's weak to the body. I mean, he respects body shots. Which boxer doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone should be going to the body all the time, especially big punchers. That's the lesson. It's not that Usyk is particularly uniquely vulnerable in that area. Body shots fucking suck, and when a slugger hits you in the gut, it sucks even more. That's just how it is.
And one of their advantages is the attritional damage that they build up over time. And if your case is that is what happened to Usyk, then in both the Fury and the Joshua fights, he, had his worst moments where he was hurt to the body and then immediately surged out and badly fucked up the other guy.
Yeah.
Very true.
And this was in fact the only one of these occasions where he's been hurt to the body where he hasn't completely broken the dude's spirit by the end. And again, that is simply due to the miracle of Tyson Fury's powers of recovery. You know,
Yes.
the Joshua fight.
So yeah, they do work on him
Sure.
enough to make him really, really angry.
Yeah, they inspire him to destroy
yeah.
you.
But yeah, as you said, like, it's great to see him, like, getting his roses, getting the recognition from the wider world. Because yeah, he's done it the hardest possible way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's been the road warrior. He's gone to everyone's backyard and beaten them.
True.
Brought out the best versions of everyone and beaten them. Yeah, just an amazing journey.
He's
Couldn't have hoped that it would end on not end, but sort of reach this kind of pinnacle, this kind of fight.
Yeah. And unfortunately, as is usually the case, like, we are probably in the last few years, if not right at the end of Usyk's prime. I mean, he's 36, I think.
37, I think.
30. He's been fighting forever. Usually people seem to break through, like, right before they fall off in a big way, but I mean, what a journey. Like, we really have, this has been the career of an all-time great. One of the best big men I've ever seen. One of the best big men I think that there has been since the fucking 80s. He's
one of the best big men of all time. I think he's just unbelievable. I mean, I think even before he fought Joshua, and I'm sure people will think I'm being a bit zany, maybe they won't after this fight, but even before he fought Joshua, I said he would be every champion up to Liston, so before Liston. So Usyk, if you do your tape study and you do you read all your primary reports and whatnot, and you watch these fighters, even given the longer rounds and all that stuff, what we knew about his endurance, obviously you're not going to pick any pre-Jack Johnson fighter against him. It goes without saying, just too archaic. Johnson, the way he fought, not really going to play into Usyk at all, in my opinion. I think Usyk would have beaten him. Dempsey ain't going to do no better than Gassiev or Breedis. Floyd Patterson, really a light heavyweight blown up. You work your way through him. Joe Lewis will obviously be the one guy where you might pick him. But I don't think he really had the feet to keep up with Usyk generally, and didn't fight any southpaws to my knowledge. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think all the way up to Liston, that's the first time you find someone where you find a heavyweight champion that was really well equipped to beat Usyk, and that was without the Joshua fights. That was without this Fury fight. I start to think now, okay, I always thought Vladimir Klitschko would be a fucking dreadful fight for Usyk. Now I think, hold on a minute. Is Vlad really going to get the timing down in the right hand? Mm-hmm. I just start to think that Usyk is this all-terrain fighter, this era-defining fighter. And, certainly I'm biased. I'm a big fan of his. And it feels great to be right about a fighter that you've been saying for years was going to be this fucking good. But for me, personally, it's just great to see him get a recognition by the wider public for what has been really a career that we want all boxers to aspire to. As Phil said, anywhere you want, our fighter. I saw a thing from Hacksarized from the fight site which said people always worry about Usyk having to fight abroad. Why, as the Olympic gold medalist with the backing of the Klitschko's and all these title bouts, he's always the one on the road? To which Hacksarized said, Usyk doesn't care. He just says, I'll just better beat his ass even harder. Which is great, for him. It's just like, what do I give a shit? I'll just beat him up even worse. So I'm not bothered. He is everything that combat sports fans want in a fighter. And as you said, Connor, if the journey is nearly over, just be happy you're alive to witness it.
Yep. What a man. It's to think even way back in boxing history. Kyle, on your recommendation, like ages ago now, I read that Bob Fitzsimmons book.
Oh yeah, brilliant book by Adam Pollock. Yeah. Adam Pollock's books on
excellent book. If you like history of any kind, you will
on the heavyweight champions are fantastic.
Yeah, if you like history or you like boxing, one or the other, you will enjoy that book. And yeah, he had his big showdown with like one of the first great slicksters, Jim Corbett.
Indeed.
And those two danced around each other for like 8 years. Like just yelling at each other in restaurants and having the fight, either guy withdrawing and like, having to try to insist on the perfect circumstances to get the fight, like going way back. That is just the norm. And I can't really fault people for it. Like, these are human beings. This is their livelihood. They don't want to have it all hinge on one big moment and then lose. Usyk has just been doing that. Like, he's been chasing those big moments that might just quash all momentum, and it's made him, he's a legend. All comers, any place, any time, moving up in weight, like he truly is an all-time great fighter. I feel very privileged to have got to watch both his cruiserweight and the heavyweight run, and this, what feels like the culmination of it, although it seems like they're going to run it back, and I would certainly be happy to see this fight again.
You got any thoughts, you boys? You think that Usyk just knows that he can get the measure of Usyk, sort of Fury better next time? Taylor Higgins, the other fight site guy, who's a trainer, coach, and amateur fighter himself, said there's a couple moments in there where Fury did manage to back him up and occupy him, and he'd love to see a bit more of that from him next time.
Yeah, Fury responded. Mm-hmm.
I just think that generally, I think what Usyk brings to the table it limits Fury's opportunity to do that because he overthinks things, and as you say, his eyes can be diverted. So for me, I actually think that Usyk turns the wick up a little bit sooner next time. But I wouldn't be surprised to see another really compelling fight.
Quite possibly. Yeah, I think it would still be great. I mean, I think Fury would bring it, would probably once again come in fantastic shape. But I think for Usyk, the main adjustments he has to make is really just like not drifting away from the things that worked throughout the entire fight when he stuck to them. He sticks to his jab. He sticks to his body work. He doesn't ever get distracted by the like cycling headshots in off the body work. He keeps the pressure. I don't know. I just think there's a lot to build on and so little that he would really have to consider like a mistake to be addressed. But there's just a couple little tweaks, and I think he's basically got the perfect game plan for this fight. Again, I thought he won 8 of the rounds. So like, even without the big moments, and even despite the big moments for Fury right in the middle, I thought Usyk was largely in command of this fight.
Yeah, I feel like Fury's margins are just thinner in two key ways. One is essentially like just in terms of space, in that once the combinations are extended, once the fight starts going, deeper into the layers, he can't keep up. He's just not as fast and not as defensively capable in the pocket. And without having a safety zone, which is the clinch, where he can just hold and control, which he clearly just couldn't, it means that he's going to get stuck in those positions a lot. And his main successes in this fight were just essentially just keeping Usyk at the mid-range and just cutting his entries off entirely. But once Usyk just decided, I'm going to get in and then I'm going to stay there, became much, much tougher for him. And the second one, in which his margins are thinner, is obviously it's just durability. They both hurt each other, but one of them was, very, very close to being, was essentially just out on his feet for like a minute. So I think it is one of those fights, and as we said, we thought it was tough. It would be tough for Fury, even if he came in at his best. And I think that's sort of what it looked like. Couldn't have hoped for it, but that is what it looked like. It looked like he came in at his best, and it's still just a fundamentally tough style matchups for him because Usyk is just that guy.
Yeah. He basically had the problem in layered exchanges that Michael Johnson has with wrestlers. Mm-hmm. Once he figured out how to catch Usyk in that first layer, to time him on the step in, he did really well. And then any time it went beyond that, and he had to continue making defensive calls, there were a couple times where he was, shoulder rolling and slipping undershots. They were the exception. Most of the time when Usyk could get through that first layer, whether it was the jab or the uppercut or both, and deepen the exchange, Fury was in trouble. I don't see how that necessarily changes. I think that's kind of fundamental to who he is as a fighter. And it's just the fact that nobody else in this entire division is able to do that.
Yep.
Without getting clinched up. And Usyk just, either completely thwarted or broke out of basically all the clinches, except for maybe 2. in the entire fight. So,
yep, we've obviously heard some copium from people online where they're just like, oh, what Fury should have done is just gone forward as the bigger man. Coincidentally, strangely enough, the exact same copium that we heard from all the Anthony Joshua fans.
Yeah, right. How dare he lose? I thought he would win. I hate that response.
He should have just
much.
fought in a completely different way to the one, like the way he normally does, and the way that his skill set operates around.
Yeah, these people really understand what it is to be an elite competitor. They certainly don't just assume that these athletes are video game characters that you can just tack any fucking idea or strategy onto and they'll pull it off flawlessly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Amazing.
saw someone say yesterday that Fury should have kept doing what he was doing. He it's something like he stopped concentrating. He looked not bothered after the 7th round. It was like, yeah, you don't really know what you're watching, do you?
Yeah. But you know what? I hope they all had fun, these people. I just hope everyone had fun. I certainly did. All right. Well, that is more than enough for an entire episode. So I think we'll just call it here. And then Phil and I, will be talking about Laurent Murphy, who had an incredible showing against Edson Barboza in last weekend's UFC main event for the Patreon. So, Kyle, I want to thank you for joining us once again. Thank you for kind of trying to clean up the accent this time. I think the listeners will have had an easier time understanding you. And in addition to your podcast, Combat Chronicles, which, by the way, your preview of this fight was amazing. I am sure that whatever you have to say over there after the fact will be equally amazing. So Combat Chronicles, check that out. Support Kyle on Patreon. Anything else people should know about?
No, not especially. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't follow me on Twitter, you can follow me, or X as it's now called. It'll never be X.
It's
I'm
Twitter.
Combat
I'll never
CR.
call it X.
I'm never calling it X. No. So I'm at Combat CR, and check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/Combat Chronicles. Thanks to you boys as well for hopping on the podcast last week. And hope everyone enjoyed our looks. Obviously, at this fight, we've had a preview and a post-fight breakdown on my own show. We've done a preview and a post-fight on this show, and I feel like, even though we've tried to cover all bases, there's still so much more to delve into because it was just such a brilliant fight. And as we've all got said on this episode,
all right,
just blessed that it exceeded expectations.
Yeah, truly. And of course, you can find Phil and I on Twitter as well, at Evil Greg Jackson. That's Phil. At Boxing Bush. That's me. Check out patreon.com/heavyhands to hear our bonus stuff. I will remind you once again that very soon now, I am going to have Miguel Class back on for our sumo series, which I have decided with no further thought to call Heavy Hanka. So you want to hear us talk more about sumo? We had a great time doing it last time. Sumo is cool. You should pay attention to it. It's a breath of fresh air from other combat sports. And that will also be on the Heavy Hands Patreon. Also, check out facepunching.substack.com. I'm going to have a more in-depth technical breakdown of Usyk Fury coming this week, hopefully very soon. I've already got some good headway on that. So facepunching.substack.com. Appreciate your support over there as well. And that'll do it for this week's episode. Until next week, when I believe we will be previewing Makhachev, right?
Wow. Seems so soon.
Because we got a week off from the UFC, blessedly, to give us time to actually get excited for an event. So next week, UFC 302, I think it is. And until then, if you came here today for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.